Welcome back to another episode of Marvel News Desk, your best place to keep up with all the latest news, reviews, and speculation concerning Marvel films and TV shows. We've got our usual panel today of Adam and Rhiannon. How's it going, guys?
Going good.
Good.
Adam, are you
Am I alive? Yeah, I'm sorry, I totally forgot I was still mad at Caleb for his comments yesterday. So I figured...
Oh, for my football comments?
No, not your football. I don't care about football. You know, Saints, Patriots.
Wait, he called you
clickbait?
clickbait?
The clickbait comments. So now I'm just going to be fake, we need a fake online beef. I've never had a beef with someone on Twitter, and that's kind of what I'm striving for. I was hoping it would be.
I just think we should start calling you clickbait. I just thought that was a funny nickname.
Go ahead. I don't care. It's all right. Do it. That's cool.
The funny thing is it was not directed at you at all, and then you took ownership of it, and then I'm the jerk. I'm just kind of figuring out how that works.
So here's the thing. I think that's the... I don't know. Is that the right thing to do? Because I know what industry I'm in. I mean, I'm pretty self-aware of it. You might as well own it. I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game.
So if we have any new listeners, Adam works for comicbook.com. Oh, wait, can we say that?
Mm-hmm.
So he is a...
And I absolutely love it, but
He's a bona fide clickbait creator.
So that's it. We need to talk about clickbait again. Because it's already evolved, and there's a really nice piece out there. I don't know who did it, like a Forbes guy or someone else. It's clickbait's not clickbait. Clickbait is what people call articles they don't want to click on anymore. Like, what's the purpose of running a news website if you're not trying to get people to read your stuff?
I mean, we've dealt with that a whole lot in the past, especially when we were all at a small website trying to make it something bigger, where if you put too much in the headline, nobody's going to click on the article. If you put a headline that makes people click on the article to find out what it is, then they're going to call it clickbait. So you're...
And I did a whole piece at MCU Exchange. If you guys remember, like, our definitions of clickbait while we were there. Because the one that always bugged me was the spoiler clickbait relationship. Like, I always remember we found out that Robbie Reyes was coming back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we debated internally. Do we put spoiler coming back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or do we put Ghost Rider to return to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And we were killed either way, because if we said spoiler comes back, people are like, oh, you're just clickbaiting it. Why don't you just put it in the title? And then you put it in the title and someone's like, oh, you spoiled the show. I didn't want to know that he was coming. And so, like, we were totally, like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, nobody was happy with us on that, so.
Right. If you want to see the worst of the internet, write a bit or two about Black Panther getting an Oscar nomination.
Oh, really?
And then read the comments. Miserable
Adam,
people.
You should start a beef with who's the what's the website or the Twitter account that's like save people a click or
oh no, film clickbait. No, I can't start a beef with them. They keep retweeting my stuff.
They hate you.
They're giving me job security. I don't want to beef with them.
I remember they did one where you had an article that was like the 3 posters for Avengers all together. Like you put the name.
Yeah, you
the name was in the title. It wasn't clickbait at all. It's like, hey, I put the 3 of them together if you want to look at it, and if people wanted to, they could click on it. And they were like, it's just a picture of the 3 posters. That's what he said it was.
That's what it is. Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, like, it is exactly what I said. And there's some stuff that's not, there's some phrasing and stuff. But I most of the time, I mean, if someone puts, like, here's what Charlie Cox said about Daredevil Season 3, people will call that clickbait. But I mean, like, Charlie Cox did say something about Daredevil Season 3.
I don't know. We've done a lot of things, continue to do a lot of things for free because we like to make it and we like to provide content for the fans. And I'm not grumpy about that, but like, people like write this stuff and do this stuff and they spend their time on it. And the only other answer to me is put everything behind a paywall, like make every website where you have to subscribe to it. And that would suck. So, like, putting up with a little bit of clickbait, if it's the economic engine that allows sites to exist, is kind of okay with me.
I mean, the classic clickbait was, you'll never believe what Charlie Cox said at Ace Comic-Con.
Right.
That was like the original clickbait. Like, you'll never believe, he stepped on stage and you won't believe what happened next. Like, so, you're not at that level.
Not yet.
But,
I can be.
take that inspiration.
Especially with the Daredevil fans.
Take that inspiration.
Heck yeah.
So, Adam, I guess while we're talking about your job and the things you do, let's get into a news story. We're going to do a lot of Punisher stuff tonight. You got to talk with Steve Lightfoot. Is that his name from Punisher?
I did. It is.
So you got to do that interview with Comic Book, and I know you've posted all this stuff. Do you want to give us a summary in the news of the things you learned from him, talking to him about Punisher?
Yeah, super, super chill dude. Talking with him, he's like the ideal writer to have on a really dark show. He said some, especially with I asked him a question about Micro, and he said something along the lines of, obviously you could go read it, but I'm going to paraphrase. He said like he hopes that him and his wife didn't work out because he feels Micro's best at hacking and stuff. So he's on the darker edge of things. Obviously, at least he couldn't say, or he won't say, whether it's going to be renewed or not. Because quite frankly, I'm not sure he knows. And I'm sure he'll probably find out literally minutes before we do via Deadline or Entertainment Weekly. But he didn't say. He went to the length of actually, assembling the writer's room. Of course, and plotting out the season. He did confirm with me that he won't have Frank kind of do the Michigan bit again. It's going to be strictly in New York City. How he takes that, he didn't really say. That's about it for season 3. He says he has an idea. Obviously, I'm not going to say that because we'll get that into our spoiler review. Obviously, it's not going to include a certain someone. But outside of that, yeah, there was no details on that front. He did provide some good stuff as to Jigsaw, why they made his injuries more mental than like a physical disfigurement. And it is a bummer not to see Jigsaw's face look like a pepperoni pizza or whatever, just a tenderloin. But Lightfoot said it best, if they were to make his injuries just physical, that's almost one-dimensional of sorts. It's one thing and it's done. You're like, this guy's just pissed off because his face isn't pretty anymore. So he kind of discussed about the whole traumatic brain injury and stuff. I'm not sure if that's spoiler. By the way, I don't think it is because that was in the trailer and stuff. At least Jigsaw's mental health battles.
That's another conversation we can have. Is what is and is not a spoiler. Because we had several people on our YouTube review. Right. It's like, oh, you're spoiling the show, and I'm like, in a review, you talk about the premise of a show. Like we were like,
right.
Jigsaw is coming back from some mental issues from his attack by the Punisher. And they're like, oh, you're ruining season 2. You're telling us what's happening. No, that's what we know from the first 10 seconds of like Russo in this show. So
right, yeah. How do you do a review without? What's a review supposed to say? Oh, it is good.
Well, right.
Like
what?
We
had conversations about what is it a spoiler to say that Brett Mahoney's in it? Because in our review, I wanted to talk about how good Brett Mahoney is in the show. And, there's no formal announcement that he would be in the show. He's not in the trailers, I don't think.
He's in the trailer a little bit. And that's the type of thing. So it's impossible to please everyone because then you even have the people that don't bother watching the trailers. So that's the gist of what Lightfoot said, guys. He has a plan for season 3. He's ready to go if they pull the trigger. He did talk some Jigsaw stuff. He did talk. He did a really good breakdown of that John Pilgrim. Obviously, I'm not sure this is groundbreaking stuff, but while he isn't the Mennonite, he was largely based on the Mennonite from Jason Aaron's Max run, which is a very, very dark, gruesome set of comics. And then he broke down one amazing fight scene in particular towards the end that I really, really enjoyed because it was super unique and original. But that would also be a spoiler. So, Yeah, good dude. I mean, I obviously we've said this before. If one of the shows were to get renewed, it would be Punisher. I mean, they're doing something there. Obviously, Punisher 2, I didn't think was as good as Punisher 3, but we all know Netflix isn't canceling shows based on quality.
And we're going to get into more Punisher here in a little bit.
Did you talk to him about, like, you know, if they do move on, if we can be consultants with them? You know, like, the no Michigan thing. We kind of liked the Michigan thing.
And then he said that in season 3 they wouldn't want to go back to that. That was the best part of the show.
I know, and that's.
Do you still have his number?
I kind of hinted at that. No, I don't. I could probably get it, but you know, and that's the thing. I was kind of turned off by some things he did say. I was going to test the water. Well, I tested the waters on a question about, you know, obviously the release of season 1 in Las Vegas. And he pretty much flat out said that he doesn't take any of that into account, you know, when writing the show. Or at least when writing season 2, he didn't bother thinking, you know, the effect it could have on stuff. For better or for worse, I'm not even sure. You know, obviously I didn't want to get too political with that stuff. And there's a questionable... Obviously, I would guess we'd bring up the other thing we've talked about before in our spoiler section about the Indish bit. But yeah, like I said, he's from what he, you know, his knowledge just talking to him, you know, he's a good dude for the role. He seems pretty well versed. Oh, I forgot the biggest thing. He wants to do a Blade TV show.
There you go.
That. You know, there you go. Look at that. He wants to do Blade. Hopefully better than the one that was on the WB.
There was a Blade show on the WB?
That was Vampire Diaries. Yep. Come on.
Nope, it was Blade, because the comments let me know I was wrong. Hold on one second, because I said he'd only appeared in 3 live-action movies, and the comments were like, nah, man, he was also in a TV show.
And you should reply back, no, guys, that was Vampire Diaries.
No. And then CW just tweeted tonight, meet Marvel's resident vampire hunter. Blade the series is free on CW Seed. So if you want to watch Blade the series, go ahead and download it on the free CW app, which was apparently, I don't know. Oh, it was on Spike. 13 episodes in 2006. I don't remember that at all.
That's weird.
That sounds like this... No, it wasn't. That wasn't the year of the writer's strike.
Oh, it's even in the same continuity as the film series. But obviously Wesley Snipes isn't Blade.
All right. Let's talk about Black Panther and all of those Oscar nominations. We have talked about this literally since the first podcast we ever did. About, you know, if a Marvel movie would ever win an Oscar. It was a good day, I guess, for those nominations. I guess the question I'm interested in, we see 7 nominations. What do you think most realistically Black Panther could win out of those nominations that they've gotten?
Costumes.
Yeah, that's the one for me.
The biggest one would be I still think I think it does have a fighting chance at Best Picture.
Really?
I really do. I think it does. I mean, I probably should watch all the other ones. You know, I'm a huge fan of Vice. But I think it has a fighting. It's gonna win something. It's gonna win something, and it wouldn't surprise me if it won the majority of the nominations they got. It's just so bizarre. Caleb, you've said this before. No individual is getting recognized at all. Not a single actor, actress, not a cast member. I mean, Ryan Coogler didn't get nominated. But the whole... It just seems bizarre. You know, not one single person standing out, but just the whole movie as itself. Did it get adapted screenplay?
No, it did not.
It didn't, did it?
Which is shocking. I mean, that was...
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem they have, I forget, I saw this the other day, I don't think anything has ever won Best Picture with 0 whatever they call it, above the line nominations or whatever. Like, if you do not have a nomination for acting, directing, or screenplay, you never win Best Picture. I mean, it's just never happened. Now, that doesn't mean it can't. It would just be, I think, the first time in history that would have happened. So,
well, it's also the first time in history a superhero film was nominated.
So yeah, I mean, I think costume design is very well earned. When you look at all of the ways they created the tribes and the different looks and the way that they brought in all these different traditions from all over Africa. I watched like a Vanity Fair video or something with a costume designer where she just talked about like all the research and like every single piece on every single person. She could name like the African tradition that it comes from and why it was significant. Like, that was so thoroughgoing in their work that I really think they deserve it. I also could see the Academy getting excited about handing Kendrick Lamar an Oscar as well. I mean, he's had such a big year and won the what was the music award that he won that has never been won by a pop artist person forever?
I don't recall.
Oh, geez, you'll have to look this up. But yeah, it's got a chance of winning Best Album at Grammys, but we'll see.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's probably going to clean house at the Grammys. It's probably going to do very well at the Grammys. I mean, there's a very real possibility that Marvel as a whole is going to walk away with 3 Oscars this year.
Possible, yeah.
Do you think Infinity War gets it?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they do. I think the thing that's hard with Marvel is their VFX work always builds on itself from like previous movies. And so like, yes, Thanos is amazing, but it's amazing in part because Hulk was amazing, but Hulk was built on earlier versions of, you know what I'm saying? Like, they always like increase themselves incrementally, and it's not like something brand new that we see often in the Marvel movies.
So, I mean, the only real competition it has is probably Ready Player One, right? I mean, surely Solo, what stood out in Solo?
I don't know how it was nominated. It was ugly. That whole movie, you can't see anything. It's like they shot it in a cave. I don't understand.
Right.
So the award I was thinking about, Kendrick Lamar won the Pulitzer Prize last year. And he's the first...
What?
Yeah, did you miss this? It was
I totally
first pop musician to win the Pulitzer Prize in like 85 years or something like that. So it usually goes to like a jazz artist or something like that. And as I think we're alluding to, Into the Spider-Verse is nominated for Animated Picture, and I think Sony's going to get itself an Oscar for that. As someone who's watched all those movies and loves Incredibles 2, I still think Spider-Verse is a better movie, and it's got all the momentum. So
yeah, it's momentum. It's unstoppable right now.
If Spider-Verse wins, we don't even have to play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. We could play 1 Degree of Marvel News Desk to an Oscar.
That's right.
Kind of, sort of.
Do you think that the success of Spider-Verse might keep voters from voting for Black Panther? I mean, do you think because they talk about like the voters, like, are they going to go from 0 to full comic book voting in one season?
Here's my suspicion, and this is going to sound kind of ugly. It's not because of what I believe, but the way I think Academy voters are. I think Spike Lee has been chronically and tragically under-recognized all these years. And so if the voters are in the mood of like, oh, we need to be better about recognizing black cinema, what they'll do is they'll vote for BlacKkKlansman and Spike Lee because it feels like a more prestigious African-American picture to vote for. Now, I would hope that's not how it works. I hope they're really just looking at, what they think is the best movie and they vote for what they think is good. I'm suspicious that any of the goodwill, I don't know about the comic book piece. I'm just more worried about the people that feel the impetus that we really need to better recognize minority directors and minority creators. I'm just worried that a lot of that vote will go to BlacKkKlansman, or at least it'll split, and that's not good. But I don't know. I think there's chances. I think some of these, like The Favorite and Roma, both seem like, smaller pictures that are made by non-American directors. I wonder if that can kind of split a certain sensibility. It really is wide open. I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope that Black Panther will be able to take advantage of that.
Did I read somewhere this is Spike Lee's first ever Best Director nom?
First ever.
That's crazy.
And we know they do that thing where they make up for past years.
Yes,
and stuff.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, it's kind of like Gangs of New York and Scorsese, right? Like very few people think that's Scorsese's best movie, but it's the one he finally got the Oscar for, because they were like, well, he's up and nobody else was really great this year, so we've got to give it to him to make up for that time we screwed him over on Goodfellas or whatever. So other news stuff. There's been all kinds of Endgame like leaks and toys, and I really hate to get into it. I haven't even read most of it myself because I don't want things to be ruined. Adam, I'm guessing you're keeping up on a lot of these leaks.
Yeah, man. I even paid to view them. Hell yeah, I keep up with them.
There's a lot of like, this is really weird. There's like action figure leaks without heads, so you're trying to guess from like the mold and the paint job.
So they're not in-game leaks. They're not all entirely in-game leaks because one is clearly Spider-Gwen. So if Spider-Gwen is in Endgame, I don't know what to do with myself.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
That would be amazing.
I mean, there's Spider-Gwen, and there's one that kind of sort of looks like Prowler from Spider-Verse. So, I mean, there's leaks. Obviously, the biggest one was Rescue, but...
We've heard that a million times already, yeah.
Yeah, well, we've heard Rescue a million times, and other ones Hulk. But, I mean, we've seen that the consumer products division, maybe not consumer products itself, but Marvel Studios has misdirected us before.
Right.
Intentionally led us on in a different direction with their consumer products. I'm not blaming consumer products because consumer products were probably shown or told one thing, so they ran with that, and then they cut the movie a different way. Obviously, the biggest thing, I mean, Lego set after Lego set, or the Funko Hulk busting out of the Hulkbuster thing last year.
It's a good strategy.
Toy leaks are toy leaks.
It's a strategy to me, though. It makes sense because you're basically, most of these toys are for kids. I mean, you have a lot on your shelf, but I mean, obviously,
yeah. Thanks, Caleb. You know, all those toy leaks. Eventually,
no, I mean, I collect stuff too. So. I mean, I'm not trying to mock anyone. I'm just saying they're really ultimately to sell toys to kids, particularly those Titan series crappy ones. And so, you know, the kids are going to buy, like, they should sell Spider-Man helicopters, even if we're not going to get the Spider-Copter in a movie, because kids will buy that stuff, you know? And so...
Oh, give us the Thanos copter, man. Why the Spidey copter?
Yeah.
Give us that Thanos copter. I mean...
I've gotten to the point now I don't get too worried. Like, when I see leaks, so many of these leaks are fake leaks, or they're like half the story, or it's another figure that's in a line that's actually not in the movie. I just don't get too worked. I mean, at this point, I'm not too worried about all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I've not kept up with it very much. Earlier I said Scorsese for Gangs of New York, but it was The Departed. Gangs of New York was the other one.
Oh, that was a hell of a movie. You didn't like The Departed?
I don't think anybody thinks it's Scorsese's best movie.
Oh, it's good, though.
Yeah, but anyways.
I mean, it's worthy of the award.
I mean, it'd be like this: if Spike Lee wins Director of the Year, I don't begrudge it. I'm sure that it's a worthy award, but nobody is going to look at his film history and be like, "Oh, his best movie was BlacKkKlansman." You know, like.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
So, anyways, the only other bit of news, I hate to say I called it, but I got pretty close. It looks like New Mutants is again being reshot or never got reshot. And the latest rumor is that they're just going to scrap it and put it on Hulu and be done with it. Now, I said it would go on Disney Streaming, so I was slightly off with the service, but Hulu is about to become Disney Streaming. I mean, this is just a total hot mess. At this point, would you be... I assume we'd be happy to be able to just stream this on Hulu and not have to go to the theater to see it?
Yeah, I already pay for Hulu.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. Why are they... It's crazy. Why do we get so much stuff on this then? I mean, is Boone leaking stuff himself to try to gain leverage over the studio or something? It's bizarre, man. I have no desire to see it. It's crazy to think we've gotten we got a trailer over a year ago, right?
Oh, for New Mutants?
Or crazy... Yeah.
No, the trailer came... I remember because I was at a wedding. It was October of 2017.
Oh, so well over a year ago.
Wow.
That's so crazy. They gave us a trailer and none of that stuff's probably even in the movie. It's just bizarre. It's crazy.
Yeah, earlier this week, a friend of the show, Cooper Hood, had posted something about how he was excited for Dark Phoenix, but is feeling a little different about it now. And here's the thing: about New Mutants. If you believed in either of those movies, either New Mutants or Dark Phoenix, if you thought, oh no, they might do it well, or you were an X-Men homer or whatever, they have killed all of the momentum these could have. Even if you watched the trailer and said, oh, that trailer wasn't bad, when you release a trailer and then the next day you go, yeah, we're delaying it 6 months. Or you do an Entertainment Weekly cover, which, that Dark Phoenix EW cover was forever ago. You put all that out, you start the hype train, and then you go, oh, sorry, just a second, just put it on pause. We're going to pick back up in 3 or 4 months. Never mind. Clearly the studio hates it. Nobody starts that stuff and then goes, oh, no, we're not interested anymore. And so all of these delays, you shoot yourself in the foot. Nobody's going to get hyped about this if the studio clearly is scrambling to fix it. It's just all really weird.
Why can't they make amazing movies with some of the best Marvel intellectual property available? If we go back to 2008 before the MCU started, there's probably, a dozen X-Men that were more widely recognizable than Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. Why? It speaks volumes to what Feige can do, tapping into source material and building something. It's just crazy. They have Wolverine and Cyclops and Professor X, for God's sake. Come on.
But we're seeing it DC too. I know some people don't agree. I thought Aquaman was a lot better than Batman vs Superman, so it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing what you can do if you have to commit to that movie, instead of committing to the...
But Warner Brothers is going up across time, whereas Fox is going down across time. I'm not even an X-Men fan, and I knew what they did to Apocalypse was very wrong. They're so bad at writing X-Men, I'm starting to like Cyclops. What the hell?
All right, let's go ahead. We're going to do a little spoiler talk on Punisher, because our only reviews that we have done have been the non-spoiler kind, at least what we thought was non-spoiler. I think that we had a YouTube viewer or two that didn't like us. But yeah, we want to talk a little bit about Punisher now that we can dig into the details. If you've not finished the show, go ahead and move past it. And yeah, we'll put it in the timestamps.
Well, there's a few spoilers in what we have after this, too.
Oh, that's true. Yes. After this is our interview with Royce Johnson. And so Royce was awesome. He's also known as Brett Mahoney. The interview was great. We're going to put that after this, but there'll be a little spoiler talk in that as well. So, all right. Now that you guys can talk about anything, Rhiannon, I'll let you start. Is there anything that you want to get off your chest and share now that you can talk spoilerifically?
And you verified this because you've finished the series the most recently, but the Pilgrim plot and the Jigsaw plot never, ever intersected.
They're not even tangential. I really thought the way they cut the trailer and made it look like in the last episode they might meet or something. No.
Yeah.
They made it look like Russo hired Pilgrim. They specifically edited it for it to look like that.
Yeah, the two had no purpose. The Pilgrim plot, I watched the whole season. I have no idea what his motive was. Why was he wanting to kill those girls? I don't know. I don't care. And I don't know because I don't care. I'm sure they explained it in some way, but I don't care.
I found the Pilgrim plot a little more interesting.
So on a religious side, how do you feel about that being... It also just kind of feels icky to me that there's this trend, and I'm not even, very religious, but it feels icky to me that there's this trend of vilifying Christian extremists at the moment. And it felt, I don't know, yes, they were bad. It was awful, but just the whole Pilgrim plot, blah. It just made me feel blah.
My general take is I'm okay with plots where religious people are bad people, because there are religious people who are bad people. And religious fundamentalism and extremism is not good for people. Like, religious people who are not extremists, we don't benefit from extremists. So I don't mind that being an element. I kind of liked what they did with Pilgrim, because it's something that I was going to say earlier, this is going to sound bad, but I've kind of seen it, not to the extent of this, but where somebody lives like a really horrible life, and then they have a religious conversion experience, and they change who they are. But then the people who kind of convert them take advantage of their extreme feelings of kind of guilt, and like, it's just it's a hard thing. I mean, particularly like him, he's apparently like a neo-Nazi, right? That has given up those ways. He has all these feelings of like, no matter what, if you're changing your life and trying to become a more better, like a family man and a moral person after living that way, you're going to have extreme issues of guilt and shame over who you were. And the idea that a religious leader would take advantage of those feelings to manipulate somebody, like, that's a real thing that really happens. What I liked is particularly when the girl said, your faith doesn't make you do this. They're manipulating you to do this. And Pilgrim's like, yeah, that's what's going on. Like, that all felt very real to me. Also, his back claps, where he like kind of lost it and got drunk and high and used prostitutes and stuff like that. Like, that's a thing that really happens with people that have certain patterns of life and then try to get out of them. So I don't know. All of it felt, I mean, it's all hyper, but it felt realistic to me that that's a religious journey a lot of people go on. Ultimately, the religion I saw being picked on was people who use religion as a way to keep power and control over people. And that's something I'm really fine critiquing, because I critique it too. So
that's valuable insight. Positives, happy things.
Brett Mahoney. It's not just because we have him on the show. He really was so freaking good.
Yes, Brett Mahoney is just tired of all of it, and it really feels like he's finally decided how to live in this world at this point. Karen Page, how did you guys... I mean, when I saw her walk into that hotel room or hospital room, knowing that that's like the last that we'll ever see the reference of Nelson and Murdoch, the last that we'll ever see Karen Page as Karen Page, my heart hurt a little.
Yeah, it just kind of bummed me out, because I was happy with the scene with the napkin being the last of it. So it was just like a coda I almost didn't need, you know?
Caleb, there were also about 250,000 others that were very happy with the napkins.
I don't know. There's about 250,000 that have signed a petition saying they're not okay with it ending with the napkin scene.
What was the deal with that morgue guy? We've seen him before, right? He was in was he in Daredevil or Jessica Jones or something?
The who?
The guy in the morgue that wanted her shoes.
The
morgue's, I don't feel like I know him.
So I think you're confusing, Adam. There's another morgue guy who Trish always gives reservations to restaurants.
Oh, that's right.
But I don't think it's the same one.
That's not the same guy?
Maybe it is. I don't think it is. Maybe it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, wow. Good Lord.
I love though how they built it up to something grosser. Like, I thought she was going to have to kiss him or going to have to go on a date with him or something. And then when it was...
Oh, wow. You thought kiss? That was a lot more PG than what I was thinking.
And so when it was just shoes, it was just kind of like this relief laughter. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was going to... I knew it was going to build... I knew it wasn't going to be something sexual because of the way just sort of they were building it up. But, the shoes, that was funny.
Also, can we have more of the, evil night nurse? The guy that, basically killed Russo by, not finishing the surgery and just taking his money. I thought that was so hilarious and awesome and kind of weird. It was just an odd, extra 4 minutes in that episode that we didn't necessarily need. But I would have loved to see that guy stitching up, Mariah Dillard or other people throughout the time. If there was a foil to Claire on the bad guy side, it would have been great.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to get a little serious for a minute. This is a show where there's a lot of violence. For me, to a point of gratuity, but that maybe is just my preference. Does this show do a good enough job about like talking about the morals of the violence and like having a consistent ethical like compass? Or is it meant to be like a film noir that just nobody has one? I mean, I don't know. I just found myself feeling very uncomfortable with it as the show went on.
I thought the violence was a lot more toned down this time around. I mean, obviously we didn't see Frank rip some dude's eyeballs out with his thumbs, you know. I mean, Pilgrim's leg looked like Swiss cheese, and I almost got sick.
Dude, when he pulled the teeth out of his skull, that was the part that bothered me.
Oh, yeah, I'm like, whoa. But, well, like I said earlier, you know, Lightfoot specifically said he didn't think of, I mean, at least Vegas in particular when writing about the show. And I mean, I understand kind of where he's coming from. I mean, it's not necessarily black and white, I guess.
Well, and I found that interesting when you were talking about that he wasn't thinking about those sort of things, because to me, if anything, the show took like, it was uncomfortably there was an uncomfortable level with the violence because they kind of kept trying so hard to humanize it and be like, they tried so hard to show the moral quandary and, you know, having Frank go back and think about the impact of his decisions, and having a young woman on there that's constantly calling out the violence. To me, and I mean, like, how many freaking therapists do we have on this series? If I felt uncomfortable about it, it was because they were definitely non-subtly, in so many ways, saying this should make you uncomfortable. And that's why, like, I thought it was odd that Lightfoot wasn't looking at it from that angle. That he... I mean, because to me it felt very intentional. Like, oh, we're showing you these violent characters, but we're going to give all of these other... We're going to throw all these women in there, and we're going to have lots of discussions about how this is bad. And why this bad person is less bad than all the other bad people because his name is on the series.
Yeah, it seems almost nihilistic to me. Like, you had Madani as the one character who seemed to say, no, there's places I'm not going to go and things I'm not going to do. And then in the last episode, she chucks a woman out the window and puts bullets through, you know, Russo. And I don't blame her for the self-defense. I mean, I don't know. Out the window, it kind of gave me joy to see that woman, we'll talk about her in a minute, thrown out a window. But, like... It just is really weird to build this character up all season. It's like, she's going to be the moral compass that says, no, Frank's way is not the only way. And then in the last episode, it felt like, screw it, Frank's way is the only way. That's the only way we take care of bad people is shoot them. And it just seemed to, like, lose a lot of the tension and, like, what they were trying to say through a bunch of the show.
But at the same time, I'm not sure. I mean, how else can you write Frank Castle? I mean, even in G-rated comics, he's still carrying a gun. You know, and I mean, it's pretty clear what guns do. I thought, at least violence-wise, I thought this season was, quote-unquote, better or less violent. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely... And that's the thing, I mean, you know, we know Frank Castle isn't, quote-unquote, a good guy. It's still wrong to kill people. And if you're watching Punisher and have other thoughts... It's probably not good. But, I mean, I understand where the writing's... And from the creative point, you know, I guess I'd have to agree with Lightfoot to an extent. You know, at some point you can't necessarily let, you know, real-life events affect creative stuff. I mean, we should still be able to separate the two, right?
I guess what I'm saying, from even a story perspective, though, like, I want Frank to have some kind of ethic.
Well, he does, and that was completely on display, you know? I mean, he tried killing himself because he thought he killed innocent people.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I think that was about as good as ways they can do it, at least in terms of the show. I mean, so, what other...
I think we're going to talk about this. To me, the last scene was very problematic. Because, like, through most of this season, he's killing, like, paramilitary, like people who are out to assassinate him. He's literally killing people in defense of innocent people who are imminently in danger. Like, most of the violence in this is Frank killing someone who is about to kill someone else. And in the couple times it's not, he backs off. Like the Russian oligarch guy that he doesn't shoot. Because, he's got him, it's an execution. And he doesn't do it, but then, when he's in the bar, when they're directly trying to kill the girl, then he'll kill somebody else. So, like, that's sort of an ethic. And then the last scene, they're like, oh, there's these two gangs. You haven't seen them do anything wrong. You don't know what they're doing. They're all teenagers, apparently. Like, they just look like young kids that don't even know what they're up to. And it's not to excuse 22-year-olds shooting people, but, I don't know. There's a difference between a 45-year-old ex-Marine paramilitary assassin and a 20-year-old kid that's selling drugs and trying to make do on the streets. And Frank just shows up and is like, hi, and then blows them all away. Like, it was premeditated murder in the last scene. There's no self-defense in it. And I just felt like it was really a weird tonal blech at the end of the show.
I get it, I guess. I get it. I understand your side, and I understand the writer's room, I guess. For whatever reason, apparently, and Lightfoot said this in our interview again, he, that scene meant, or towards the end, the Punisher, Frank Castle wasn't the Punisher until season 2, I guess. And when he became the Punisher in season 2, still kind of lost on me. But apparently, it's before that last scene. Because again, I was told that the season was still about Frank finding out what it meant to be the Punisher. And I tried thinking about it. I couldn't choose one scene where I'm like, wow, he's the Punisher. I thought he was the Punisher in the pilot episode.
All I can think of is the scene in the mobile home where he looks at Madani and Curtis and says, just let me be who I want to, like who I am.
Yeah, true.
I guess that's it, but...
Yeah, but I feel like, I'm with you guys on this, on the becoming the Punisher. He's become the Punisher 15 times. And they didn't do anything to assure us that he would stay the Punisher this time either. I feel like some of the best Punisher that we saw was in Michigan at the very beginning of the season. That hotel room shootout... that episode 3 shootout in the woods where he went through and he was just popping off people in the woods coming up behind him, that was Punisher punishing at top form. He didn't have moral quandaries on doing that. He had his he had his reasons, and we had fabulous Punisher in episode 3 of this season. And episode 1 of season 1.
And I guess to me, the thing that makes those click is those are all in defense of someone. Like, there was somebody's life he was defending.
Or avenging.
Well, and we don't know. We just don't know the story about the group at the end.
Right. Either. Exactly. But the fact it's contextless, I think, makes it feel different, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, it's jarring. It's certainly jarring, and that's what the...
Particularly when it ends with, in loving memory of Stan Lee.
Okay, yeah,
nothing makes me think, oh, Stan Lee, quite like murdering a bunch of 20-year-old youths.
Right, but as you'll hear now, it was done well before Stan passed. So, I get where you guys are coming from on that and where Twitter's coming from on that, but I'm not sure. I can't remember the last time I sat through credits on Netflix.
Right. Yeah. I think part of what stuck out to me, though, is there was the in memoriam thing for, is it Reginald Cathy at the end of Luke Cage Season 2?
Yeah.
And they made that fit very well and very beautifully, Well,
yeah, Luke Cage didn't really blow out away a whole warehouse full of people either.
I do want to talk about a couple more characters before we run out of time. That therapist was the worst character in the history of character.
Yeah, I
she was so... Did you understand her at all? Did you understand why she did anything she did?
Eventually they gave her... Eventually I understand what she did a little bit more than Pilgrim. The people behind Pilgrim, the people hiring Pilgrim. But she was obnoxious. She felt to me like just we need another woman in this show to, throw a human angle on our killers. all the men we have out there killing, we need another, human angle.
I was hoping we got the weird, bizarre sex scenes out of the way in 112 or 111, wherever those weird, dying, wet dream fantasy things were.
Yeah.
Which were bizarre, but then this year we get like a pseudo BDSM type pain sex scene, and I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Well, and this is a pet peeve of mine, but when they interlace violence and sexuality, like they did it very explicitly at the beginning of one of the episodes, they've got Billy and her in bed, and they cut it back and forth with him and the gang like robbing places. I think that's really bad for society. Like the psychological effect of like combining sexuality with violence is really not good for human brains. And so anyway, this is my soapbox, but like I really hate it when they do that on the show. And they've kind of done it a couple times. Like it'd be one thing if it was done once. It was kind of more an artsy fartsy thing in season 1. But here it was just like, I don't know.
Well, they're physically hurting each other while doing it. It's just bizarre, and it's like
it probably says a lot about Lightfoot's sexual thoughts, and I don't know.
Everyone has their kink.
I mean, that season one scene, it was very, very icky. I don't think anybody felt comfortable in that, but it felt like it was very intentionally uncomfortable, that it was drawing this juxtaposition of this character and what she thinks he is and what he really was. But yeah, I think that's the thing. Well, and I mean, it's consistent for Billy.
I'm a little tired. I don't know if this might be our most mature show ever. I'm a little tired of magic jigsaw penis too. The idea that like women's brains just fall out of their heads the minute that they get around Billy Russo. Like they did it to Madani, and then they did it to the therapist. Billy Russo shows up in the room, and all of a sudden these very smart, intelligent women that have professions just are like, oh, Billy! And they just do really stupid things that ruin their lives. I find that very frustrating.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure. I mean, can that be a spin-off podcast, or can we start a band or something? Just call it Magical Jigsaw Penis?
I mean, have you guys seen Ben Barnes, though? I mean, I might... No.
I might throw my career down the tubes and go to prison for him.
Look at him.
The other thing I want to talk about for a minute was the girl. To me, the best part of the show was the relationship between Amy and Frank. Like, it really worked for me. And some of those episodes that you guys said were bad, for me, I thought were redeemed because I just loved seeing them together. My favorite part of the whole show, maybe, was when they left that studio and she convinced him not to kill the guy who ran the video studio. And then as they left, she goes, but you can burn the place to the ground if you want to.
Yeah.
And then they like leave and the flames are coming up. Like the way that she was like a moral compass for him, and the way that she kind of redeemed some of the father that he lost when his kids died. Like, I don't know. I thought that was all very good.
I liked her a lot. I loved their relationship. I loved her snarkiness. She was wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really I was hesitant at first. Especially when they were in, it was Michigan, right? Or was it Ohio? Or
it was supposed to be Michigan. I think it was probably upstate New York, but yeah.
I was hesitant there, but I'm really glad of where it went. I mean, I felt during that bus station scene, that bus depot scene, I mean, she did great. Georgia Wiggum did great. Bernthal was amazing in there. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm still stuck on Magical Jigsaw Penis.
That's all right.
But yeah, I mean, she was really good. Right when she started, right before that hotel sequence, is really when I knew I was sold on the character.
Yeah, I don't love Frank taking her to murder the big bad people. Like, again, that felt just like an inconsistency to me, that he's trying to protect her from all this stuff. And then he's like, hey, here's a gun. Let's go in there and I want you... I want you to hold this gun up to the bad guys' heads and let's go kill them together. Like, I don't know. That felt a lot of character. But other than that, I liked her a lot.
The one fight I was mentioned last week was that hotel fight. How I've never seen anything shot like that before in my life, and it seemed almost perfect. You know, about how the two hotel rooms and just blindly firing through the walls. I don't know what it was about it. And then they flipped rooms halfway through, and it was just... I really enjoyed that part. And then the other part... One of the favorite lines, I can't even remember what he said, but it was in the final fight where they're just both beat, and Frank's like, takes a deep breath and says, "You ready?" or whatever. You know, I just really enjoyed that aspect of it. And which still, I mean, that does point that he was still kind of fighting whether or not to be the Punisher, I guess. Because I would guess the Punisher just would have used his gun to blow Pilgrim away. Whereas it was Frank Castle that was fighting John Pilgrim in the junkyard.
It was a little bit of a Martha moment, like, oh, you have kids? I have kids.
Right, yeah.
No one I've ever killed has ever had kids before, you know?
Right. But that was, I mean, that does run with the whole stuff of the season 2 with the Russian guy.
Yeah, right.
And then the senator's parents? I was kind of, were they also like politicians, or were they like a super PAC, or were they just...
No, man, they're just the rich folks that run this country that, you know, had set their son up to become president.
Okay, but they were the parents of the senator, right?
Yeah.
I got at least that right.
Yeah.
And there was something about the senator... There was something about the senator and Amy, and that's why Amy had to die?
Right, well, she was hired to get pictures of the senator, right? The senator and the Russian kissed or met or something, right?
Yeah, so the senator is gay, but they've always hid that because they thought it would be bad for his political agenda.
Because he's a Republican. Presumably.
Right. I mean, and so they got pictures to blackmail him of him with a man, and then they killed the girls so that they tried to kill the girls for doing it, and they tried to get a hold of the photos. The whole reason they wanted Amy and Frank was because they knew about it and they could blow the whole thing wide open. And really, it was a commentary on the fact that these wealthy fundamentalist type religious people that were politically engaged were so homophobic that they caused all of this mess over the fact they're embarrassed that their son is gay.
Right, where'd the Russian come into that? I'm lost.
The Russian's the guy who kissed him. So the Russians knew...
That's what I thought.
Yeah, the Russians knew... Of course it's the Russians. The Russians knew that the senator was positioned to not only be a senator, but maybe run for president. And so their hope was that they could get dirt on him so that they would then be the hand behind the White House. Not that would be anything that would be remotely like something that would happen in real life.
The Punisher Season 2 is a documentary. Oh my god, I finally got it.
Yeah.
It's all coming together.
I mean, I'm all for a good, juicy Russians controlling the White House plot, and they could not even keep my attention with all of that.
The last thing I wanted to mention, I love the way that Russo dies.
Yep, perfect.
Because I felt like all season long, way too many people were like buying into his bullcrap. And so when he's like, Frank, I just want you to know, and then Frank's just like, boom, boom, gone. You know, like, I'm not listening to another word of this crap. I thought was perfect. Even though I didn't love... It was kind of weird. It felt like they wanted Madani to kill him and Frank to kill him, and so they kind of like split the difference. But I liked that Frank just ended it. And he, you know, there was just something like very satisfying about how brief and quick that, like, Frank was so over it he didn't even care. You know, like the guy he couldn't kill at the end of season 1, at this point he doesn't, you know, whatever. Let's get it done.
That's because he's really become the Punisher now.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say.
In that moment, he became the Punisher.
That's the moment when he really became the Punisher. Even though he wasn't wearing the vest, he should have brought the vest with... anyway. Do you guys want to see a third season of this show now?
I think so, because that'll probably be the only Marvel show we would get.
If they make one, I will happily watch it.
It's the tricky thing. I mean, the Punisher's not... I mean, he was introduced in the Bronze Age. He doesn't have the mythos Man, they already did Jigsaw. Micro was off undercooking turkeys with his wife.
Or not.
Or not, according to Lightfoot. Well, Lightfoot flat out said he's probably drunk in a pool of whiskey somewhere waiting for Frank to come rescue him. So that's how depressing that story
I could still do The Odd Couple, Frank and Micro. Like, I enjoyed that sitcom.
I would like to see them go with the Madani CIA stuff and take the show overseas. Like, I love the idea that they'd bring in Micro and Punisher, and they'd almost do like a Suicide Squad kind of deal. Like, you're bad people, you're not officially working for us, but there's a Russian tech mogul who is infiltrating the U.S. government, and it's your guys' job to stop him, and we're not going to ask questions on how you do it. And it's like Frank on the run in Russia with Micro helping him. I'd be totally into that.
I mean, it almost looked like they were in a desert, right? Wasn't Madani like on sand or something?
Maybe, yeah.
I don't recall. Maybe they could be going after a certain Raoul Bushman.
Ooh. And then Moon Knight pops out of it, right?
Yeah. No, he's getting a movie, man. No hopes for Moon Knight on Netflix. Bummer. But...
All right. I think now's a good time. Let's jump into our interview with Royce Johnson. It's really fun, and we're going to play that audio for you right now.
We are sitting down tonight in celebration of Punisher Season 2. We are with Royce Johnson, Sergeant Detective Brett Mahoney himself.
Yes, what's going on, guys?
Hey.
Oh, so exciting.
I'm excited as well. It's been a great weekend, as far as reviews, and it's well received. I love it. I love it. The future of it, of course, I don't know, but yes, I am glad that we had such a great hype about this season.
Right.
You don't even have to go to that question. You're just like prepared for it.
Yeah, it's like it's coming anyways.
Now, remind me, is this your first... I know you've been in Daredevil. Were you in any of the other Marvel Netflix things, or was it just Daredevil? I can't remember.
Jessica Jones. I had a cameo in Jessica Jones.
Okay.
Kilgrave came in and took control of our minds.
Yeah.
And told me to come and get Jessica Jones out of a holding cell. So that was the cameo. But I was the first to cross over in the universe, not Rosario. I was. So.
Okay.
Well, I was thinking about it because you have such a strong role in Punisher this season, and you were in Punisher season 1. Right.
Yeah. Well, season 1 was just Steve Lightfoot, who's the showrunner. Watched Daredevil. Said that he loved the work that I did, and he wanted to see more of me. So. They wrote an episode, which was episode 10 in the first season. They're like, look, we like this guy. We could use this running back, I call it, if you want to use sports analogy, on our team. So I was like, yeah, of course, So I was shooting Daredevil and The Punisher season 2 at the exact same time.
Awesome.
Yeah, which was interesting to do.
That was
you're like the new Rosario because you're crossing over so much.
Yeah, you kind of taking her place because she's not been on him in a while also.
Yeah, well, she did enough. I mean, she was on everything. I mean, Iron Fist, the Defenders. So she had a lot of work to do. So, and Deborah Ann did, both Punisher and Daredevil season 2. So it's a lot when you're doing both simultaneously, Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested, when your character shows up, it's often, there's a good comedic quality to Mahoney. I laugh out loud most of his lines, but it's a pretty dire show. I mean, there's lots of killing and death and like the dark, seedy underside of the world. So I'm just interested as an actor, when you approach that role, how do you balance trying to fit into the overall tone of what you're doing, but still bring that comedic piece? I mean, I'm sure there's an issue there that you've thought through as you've done this role.
Well, just like, I mean, I think every actor brings some of themselves to every role they play, I don't want to play him like a typical cop role. I want to play him as a human being, a guy. He's just a guy doing his job, Law enforcement, sometimes they get a bad rep. I go to bodegas all the time. We joke around, we laugh. The way I approach this role as just, a guy who took an oath. I got a job to do. Why not add a little humor to it? It's such a gritty show. It's the best way I can communicate with the other actors, have that bond. So that bond outside of shooting crosses over, and that's where the relationship comes in at with the comedic part, just being funny off camera to bring it on camera, but still talking about a serious matter.
I mean, it's kind of you have to laugh to keep from crying type situation.
Yeah, exactly. That's, even, going to Madani's doorstep, telling her about a girlfriend who shows up at a place that I showed her and then pretends that she doesn't see me. That's pretty funny if you think about it. Like, why would I be jealous about something like that? But it's a big deal. Like, I went to her house, I, got drunk, and I stayed on her doorstep, and I passed out, and I embarrassed myself. So that's pretty funny, right? It's a funny, funny monologue. I don't want Brett to be one-dimensional. Just I'm going to show up and do my police job and just deliver the message.
It's super interesting. I talked to Steve a couple days ago, and he said the same exact thing about you as you said about yourself, about how you play the character. About the character and not the cop.
Yeah, and not the cop.
Great. And great minds think alike on that one, I guess.
Yeah. I think that. I think that. I live in the Bronx, so I see a lot of law enforcement guys here. And I see them joking around with each other. It's not all, ready, hands up, looking for somebody to arrest or something like that. They're real people. They're guys who are ready to go home and see their wives and families, and so that's how I approach the role. Gotcha. I like that. I talk about my mother a lot in Daredevil. People probably think, hey, he lives with his mother or he checks up on his mother and she needs to stop smoking cigars.
Right. Well, we met your mother. I mean, we met Brett's mother.
You finally met Brett's mother. Finally, right? When will we meet Brett's wife? Because he's been wearing a wedding ring, a wedding band for like 4 seasons and no right. Is he in denial? Has his wife left him?
Ooh.
That's interesting because you do show how the character has gone from really a side character to a much more significant character. I mean, I'm sure that's kind of a natural progression. Was there kind of a point where you said to yourself, like, oh, this is a different kind of gig than it used to be? Like, was there a point in the process where you realized that you're going to get to be a little bit more than just that guy Foggy talks to,
Well, in the first season, it was like pretty much like breadcrumbs. We didn't know. It was a test of the waters with Netflix and Marvel. So they would call me in. My agent would be like, "Hey, they want to see you for another episode, and then another episode." And the character eventually like grew. And then I was like, "Hey, wait, this could turn into something." I would always try to like leave with what they've given me, a great punchline to want them to have me to come back, sort of like the Bruce Willis, yippee-ki-yay, mother, something that they can remember me by on my last line. I would always approach it like that, to have the audience say, hey, I like this guy. He's not all bad with helping out, but becoming allies with Daredevil was the real challenge. Just living in New York and, seeing, people dressed up in all kind of costumes and outfits and making this guy an ally was more of the challenge for me. Because I don't know his identity. That's the thing. And being in law enforcement, my eyes and antennas should be up to a guy dressed around fighting crime.
Now I'm trying to remember at the end of Daredevil season 3, I felt like there was hints that maybe Mahoney was starting to figure out that Matt is Daredevil. As the actor, do you think Mahoney was starting? Do you think he was a good enough detective? He was starting to piece it together, or no?
Right now, I would say still no. I don't think. I think there's constituents, comrades, colleagues. I was starting to see him as a comrade. If he wants to hide his identity, let him have it. We're both on the same team. I think that I've seen him enough times by being friends with Foggy Nelson so long. I think I've walked in the law offices. I've seen Matt Murdock over 1,000 times. I don't think I would have a hint in my mind that he's the guy doing all this stuff.
But he's
and that's some of the
it.
brilliance of the character, I think, is that because he is blind,
right?
Like his secret identity is like a step up from even like a Batman or whatever, because people go, oh, he's blind. And it's almost a critique of how we look at people with disabilities and kind of like, write them off as not being capable of certain things.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. I see him as a clean-cut, straight-edge guy. He just happens to be blind. Him outside in the streets at night, hunting down bad guys is probably far from me. But there is a camaraderie that we build up over time with this episodes that just come together, that just piece together pretty well, especially with the promotion. How could I be upset with a guy who got me promoted? You know what I mean? Right. I don't care who you are, man. You got me promoted, man. I'm not trying to get in your business like that.
So you did mention you were the first, you're the original crossover, at least in the Defenders verse. How's that work logistically? Obviously, you were filming Daredevil 3 and Punisher 2 concurrently. Does the call come from up top, like Jeff himself, that says, "Hey, we're going to have you in Daredevil," or did you get a call from Steve saying? How's that work between, especially if you're filming at the same time? Did Eric and Steve work together? Or?
Well, first they deal with my reps and let me know, to try to make my schedule as less, chaotic as possible.
Gotcha.
They warned me, forehand that I may have to shoot one in the morning and one at night. And the storylines were very different. Of course, you guys know that.
Right.
So that never happened, which was fortunate and lucky for me that I never had to shoot, 2 different shows on the same day. It could be the next day, but not the same day, which would have thrown me out a little bit with the storylines as far as an actor. But we made it work. They were deep into Daredevil, at least by episode 7, when we were just starting The Punisher, episode 1 or 2. So it was enough time to, balance the two together.
So you got at least a little bit of sleep between each night.
Yeah, a little bit of sleep. I was like, how do I sleep? There is no. You sleep when you can. You sleep in your trailer. You sleep on breaks. Wherever you can get it. It was like, welcome to, the world of Marvel. Welcome to TV.
Yeah, I saw Jay Ali's behind the scenes post where everybody was sleeping inside the church.
Oh yeah, and that's real. You get a little nap in.
Yeah.
The best way you can. You get a nap in. But it was fun. You still, it's a good problem to have as an actor. I heard Mahershala Ali. He was shooting Luke Cage and Moonlight at the exact same time. He would get on a train, go to Philadelphia, shoot wherever Moonlight, see his family, and then come back and shoot some of Luke Cage. So that comes with the job. Yeah, comes with the job. It's a good problem to have. Trust me.
You talked about living in New York, and obviously these shows film primarily in New York. They made New York a character. Was that a fun experience for you to be kind of so close to work and being able to be in the city and, work so close to home?
It was so convenient. I listened to the guys from LA. They had to get put up. But me, I can come home, rest in my own bed, come back in my study room where I started. That's where I am right now. I'm not in my apartment. I'm like in my study room. So it was pretty cool to come back there and just feel like home. And instead of some hotel room or some apartment, some Airbnb spot or something, So I'm glad that the shows are shot in New York City. If I had to go to LA, of course I would go, but I'm just glad that I was at home shooting and working.
So, obviously, when did season 2 wrap production? It was obviously before the dominoes started to fall, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Season 2, I believe, wrapped around May, June timeframe.
Okay.
And I think we were done with The Punisher around August. Yeah, of course, that when the news came out, it kind of, tore us all apart around Christmas time, I believe.
Mm-hmm, right.
Yeah, we were already scheduled to shoot. We had our parties, Eric was ready, schedules were ready, super excited. And then the news came and we didn't know who did what or who said what or, did we have to wait? A very hard place to be around the holiday season, you know what I mean?
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah. I think
it's like 'tis the season, we're like, 'tis the season to get canceled? I thought we did all right, guys. Come on.
No, you did.
Great.
You did.
The things come out is that it had nothing to do with the quality of the show.
Right. But we didn't know that at the time, we just got some phone calls and some emails saying, what great jobs we did. And, hopefully we will return. And every other person was like, you guys, you'll be around, you'll get picked up, It's sort of like a family member had passed away, like, you'll be all right, you're going to get through this.
So, I mean, the guys can roll their eyes at me, but do you know about the Save Daredevil campaign and all the stuff?
Yes, of course. Okay. I was a part of that. I signed a petition.
Good. You've been
I did everything. Okay. Yeah. We posted. I told friends walking down the street, Uber riders, Uber drivers, Save Daredevil, he's been good to us.
Gotcha.
Family, man. We're family. We fought together for 4 years. How could I not participate, man? It's like living in your building and you got to sign something, from management. You participate. Right. You're a team player.
Royce and I are going to go carry signs around Times Square.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Save Daredevil. Save Daredevil.
Hey, that would be a good way to boost your follower count. Just use the Save Daredevil hashtag.
I never thought of that. See there? You're giving me ideas now.
Oh, there you go. So I live in New York, but there's some plans forming. We'll make sure you're in the loop.
Please.
There's some taking it to the streets type stuff in New York happening.
Please.
So I have maybe a boring question about the practicality of all that. I mean, we've heard that if this show is going to be picked back up, it'd have to be a couple of years because Netflix kind of had some contractual thing that said that Marvel wouldn't do another Daredevil something for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
As an actor, how does that work? I mean, I assume that you're hoping that you'll have like a great movie gig or another great TV gig 2 years from now. I mean, I always feel like on those petitions, I don't want to make Royce sit around for 2 years to get another job, we want you to be working. And so when somebody talks about like the revival of a show later on, is that practically tricky though to get everybody back into a show after it's been on hiatus that long?
I don't, 2 years is a long time. 1 year, okay. 2 years, we all probably will be working on something in 2 years. And to revisit is like getting a band back together. To get everybody back together would be awesome. To hit the big screen would be great too, as well. I embrace that. If we was just to even do a movie or some sort, that would be great. But right now, we know nothing. Apparently, contracts were signed and it's 18 months. But everything can be reversed. This is higher than us.
And you could be making the next Moonlight in Philadelphia and taking the train back up to be Brett Mahoney. I mean,
exactly. I will definitely do that. I love the character. It was my breakout role, and of course, even if I'm on a show, of course, negotiations have to be made with my reps. But Marvel calls. You go. I mean, the brand speaks for itself.
I am interested, kind of back to more specifically on the Punisher.
Okay.
One of my favorite scenes was where you guys go off the overpass in the
ambulance. Yeah.
So, I mean, was that tricky to shoot, or was that just good camera work? Like, I'm interested how that how the practical effect there was for you guys trying to film that.
I think it involved everybody. No one had to step out. We're talking stunt guys. We're talking CGI. We're talking props. We did the green screen. I had never done green screen ever, and this was my first. And, just controlling the wheel, the whole non-driving thing when you're actually supposed to be driving was an experience for me. Glad to see that the cuts came out great. Felt like I was moving the steering wheel a bit too much, but the action of it, when you saw it, a guy could be moving the steering wheel that much, bypassing, almost hitting pedestrians and stuff and dodging other cars. That you're right. That's probably one of my best scenes as well. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time we see Mahoney just like loses it, he's been pretty straight edge the whole time. And now he's like, everybody else wants to act crazy and tell lies or whatever. So let me step off the edge a little bit. And things happened, we end up crashing almost, both dying.
I have to say
but it involved everybody. Just to answer your question, the stunt guys, just the ADR, somebody, not the ADR guy, maybe a PA screaming hard right, turn hard left.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of involvement with everybody, and it took hours. It was hours upon hours, and we couldn't shoot it here. We had to shoot it in Albany. there's a speed limit in New York City. We can only go so fast on the highways. There's the FDR and the West Side, so we had to go up north to shoot the scene itself, which was pretty cool. We got there and everybody's like, "Oh, you guys, they're shooting the Punisher here," So we like made the news that night. We were in the Starbucks. They wanted pictures in Starbucks. It's like, you guys are here, man. You got the most excitement in Albany in like weeks. That's good news.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I have to say that scene is like the one time in these shows that I was like so incredibly scared that your character had died.
No.
I mean,
he could have came out with some special powers, man. That's how Marvel works, man. Freak incidents, man. Come on, a freak incident happens, and before you know it, Mahoney can fly, or
Piper. Do you have a character? Yeah, like I mean, if Mahoney was to come out of something with special powers, do you have a character in mind?
Right now, I mean, one of my favorite Marvel characters is Professor X. We don't want Mahoney in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
So, but anything can happen in the Marvel universe. That's what they said. Die, come back. You guys know about the Hand and things of that nature. So.
But they are running out of Dragon Bones. Mahoney might have to hurry up.
They are. Oh,
so you went to the premiere of Punisher was last week, and I don't want to be like the pessimist, or I guess what was everyone feeling? I guess what was obviously Daredevil's gone. Yes.
Yeah, the energy was great, man. It wasn't like a farewell thing. We were all excited about the work we did with any project. Or with any closure. There's nothing guaranteed there. But I think we all met in LA. We were all smiles. No one said anything about a cancellation. We were all positive, all the way up from the showrunner to the producers and us, having hope and having hope with each other and celebrating how we all came together as a group and pulled off a great season.
You had one franchise this year in Marvel franchise. What do you think Mahoney would fit in best with? Iron Man or a Thor franchise or America?
I would say Captain America. This guy, the reason why is because, like policemen, they take oaths, to defend. There's certain lines we don't cross. Captain, it would be Captain America.
I'd love to see. I think Spider-Man is the place it works.
You want me to go to Queens now? You want me to go to Queens? Leave us, get transferred.
I'm just imagining a bad guy like webbed up against a light pole, and Mahoney shows up, and all they would need is you to show up and look at it and go, "How do I always get these guys?" That's all they would need.
I like that. I think you've taught me that one. So, I think that would be great too. Spider-Man would be awesome. Super awesome. I mean, it's still in New York, and Mahoney just happens to be dropping groceries off to his aunt somewhere who lives in one of the other boroughs. And
I mean, the one scene in question I had, I guess, that I particularly enjoyed was it was almost perfect right after Russo died. I'm not sure if it's a church basement or what, or where Diane kind of takes the blame for Frank. Of sorts, by that point, do you think Mahoney has, obviously, as a police officer, as a detective, he can't, condone Frank's actions, but do you think there's a little part of him that kind of agrees with what Frank's doing? Or is he
his methods, I don't think I would ever agree to that, but the guy did save my life,
right.
At the end, I think, like I said, Madani, there's a scene when she thinks that she was, she wakes up in shock, and me talking her down. I think that's a friendship that's developed, a trust that we've come to a certain level now that we can trust each other. Curtis is a good guy. I've done my homework on him. So I think we end on a great note. Where Frank ends up at, what Mahoney does, I couldn't answer that. his methods are just extreme. It's just a bit extreme.
One more season.
Yeah, it's just a bit extreme. Even when he does save my life, I'm like, I still can't let you just go and do things the way you do things. Will we be best buds? I can't answer that. You know what I mean?
Right. It's almost as if, you know how well Mahoney would do in that sheriff's department in Michigan? That standoff. He would have took care of that standoff for sure.
Yeah, I'd have went out there, man. Frank, you stay. I know the way you work, Frank. I got to take this on. But no, I thought that was a great scene to be. That he's drifting now, and there's other law enforcements that are not as trained as Mahoney is at this point. Because I thought, like in season 2, having a first case, being a first-time detective, a little bit in over his head as far as with the hand. But by the Punisher, season 2, he's pretty seasoned at this point.
Well, and I think there's also, he's making the calculation of like, I don't like Russo being murdered, but I also know that this will probably end all this baloney that I'm having to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Like at some point, it's like, let's just be finished with this.
Yeah, already. So. Right, exactly. So I can get back to other, work to be done. Because, chasing 2 guys simultaneously at the same time is pretty hard for one detective,
So as you wait for, Daredevil 4, Punisher 3, Jessica Jones 3, are you in Jessica Jones 2? Can you say?
I can't. I can't say that. Just like when the Punisher 2 was coming out. Are you in Punisher 2 as well? I was like, hey, I can't say anything.
Right. So, fair enough. So while you wait for more Marvel shows to be greenlit, I mean, what else is on the? I know you mentioned a horror movie or something, right?
There's Ghost in the Graveyard. Jake Busey, Kelly Berglund, Olivia Larson. These guys. It's a thriller horror, teen flick. That should be coming out soon. The director's Charlie Caporetto, pretty cool guy. So that's it. And it's pilot season. Like I said, we're shopping around new shows. We're auditioning, taking meetings, and, hopefully we land something.
It came out today, Charlie. There was some sort of article that Charlie Cox was saying, like, he wants to do another show, but he wants it to be like his show, like, another one that
okay.
So maybe he'll do another one in New York, and you guys can work together in another capacity.
That's what we were thinking. There's, I think, Jean was announced to be in one. I think The Sopranos or something on HBO, a prequel.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If they shoot nearby, who knows? There's always roles out there. We've all, formed a camaraderie, and we can call each other and say, hey, there's a role out there I think you'd be perfect for. That's the deal, with Charlie and John and Deborah Ann. We're all friends now. Outside off the clock.
Yeah, we're hoping that everything works out well. Maybe you get one of those pilots or something, man. I very much, like I said, I was excited when I found out we're talking to you tonight because Mahoney has been one of my favorite parts of the whole Netflix universe. It's been great.
Thank you so much. I didn't want to play him as some kind of jerk or funny guy, I want to play him as a likable guy, an average New Yorker.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's such a balance there too. Like he's a nice guy, but he also, you can't jerk him around, he's not going to be taken for a ride. So
no, this guy's a very smart guy, man. I mean, even if you detect the monologue I'm talking about my girlfriend, I leave Madani with, I see you've moved on. Too bold. You see? Always on the clock. Even when he's not on the clock, he's on the clock. Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And
man, hopefully I get some more followers, man. I am Royce Johnson. Instagram.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. On Instagram, go there.
Instagram, and you're on the Facebook. You're not doing Twitter?
Not yet. We got to do some Twitter, but not yet.
Well, if you do it, let us know. We'll spread the word there.
We don't blame you. We kind of hate Twitter. I mean, we do it because we have to, but it's kind of a nasty place. So
I know, man. You say one word on Twitter, man, and it's gone. Exactly. I literally mean one word.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right. Thanks so much for your time, Royce. You have a good night.
Happy New Year's, guys, and hope to be hearing from you soon.
All right,
sounds good. Thanks again.
Okay.
All right, take care. All right,
Bye.
Dude, that was so much fun. Can we just hang out with Royce every week?
I know we should. He should be a guest host or permanent host, just our fourth host.
Yeah,
that was
man.
legit.
Yeah, it was good. In fact, that's the first time we've done an interview. It reminds me a little bit Ryan Sands, who plays Alex Wilder's dad on Runaways. He'll drop by Collider Heroes sometime, and he just goes for the whole podcast because he's really into Marvel. So he talks about the news, he talks about all the kinds of stuff, and that's the first time we've had an interview that felt kind of collegial like that. So
he's a cover artist now. He does covers for comics every once in a while. Do you know that?
Oh, Ryan Sands? Yeah. All right, it's time to do the mailbag. Love Waffle on the website mentioned, and I had not seen this until after we'd done the pod. We had talked about like the elementals or the like the fire monster and the water monster and all that stuff in the Spider-Man trailer. If you guys have not seen, the license plates on all those scenes are comic book references.
Oh, like the first ASM 3, whatever, the first appearance of so and so. Is
right.
that what he's talking about?
Yeah, so there's a car in the like Sandman scene that references the first appearance of Sandman. There's a license plate in London that references the first appearance of Molten Man, and there's a number on a boat in Venice that's the first appearance of Hydro Man. So it does seem like they're purposely trying to connect those things to those characters.
Let the record reflect. I finally know where Love Waffle's avatar came from because I finally watched that show.
What show is that?
That's Atlanta, isn't it? I forgot the kid's name on Atlanta. It's in the...
Oh.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm...
You think it's the Tommy Perkins? Is that right? Is that the one you're talking about, or no?
Not the throwback episode. It's when... I already forgot her name. Zazie Beetz is teaching.
Oh, okay. Have you seen the one with the Michael Jackson type character?
That was so epic. I was so creeped out the whole time. I know. Like, what are they trying to...
That's the best episode of TV ever. It's so good.
It's so bizarre. I didn't know Atlanta... I'm not too far from saying it's like an anthology, right? Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I mean... So here's the thing. It's a show that holds together... Atlanta Talk. It's a show that holds together thematically. Yeah, so the episodes don't plot-wise work... But then, like FUBU, which is a very famous, one of their best episodes, thematically, that explains, like, it's so rich into the relationship between Earn and Paperboy. And, like, it really ties together the conflict that they're having with each other throughout that season. But it's totally, like, it's kids and it's totally out of chronology, but thematically, it informs everything. And that's what I love about it.
One of my favorite actors ever. That kid killed it.
Love Waffle also felt like I have too high expectations for the Disney Plus series. If they were characters that would move on the main story of the MCU, they'd be getting a movie. Fair enough. And also, he does not like the idea of a young Loki movie because Tom Hiddleston is the reason why people like the character. And if you don't use Tom Hiddleston, people probably won't like the character. So that makes sense. That's all I've got in mailbag. Was there any like Twittery stuff that you guys can remember?
No, I started getting exhausted by Twitter again. It seemed like I was doing a good job of controlling what I was seeing, and then all of a sudden this past week it's just been mayhem and chaos again.
All right, just some housekeeping stuff. The supercut for Iron Man should be available to everybody by this point as the podcast comes out, so definitely go and check that out. If you want to see stuff early, definitely follow us, become Patreons. That's patreon.com/Marvel News Desk. You guys know that we have the Twitter at Marvel News Desk. We've got our marvelnewsdesk.com page. And like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Marvel News Desk. It's watch.marvelnewsdesk.com for the YouTube channel. You can help the show be more visible if you give a 5-star review on iTunes. Number one thing you can do every week is listen and tell your friends. We thank you for that. Thanks to Tim Cox for our logo. He's at Instagram at Tim V. Cox. And Alvin is on a variety of social media platforms. He gave us our music. He's at The Skull School. All right. I think that does it for this week. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll be back next week.